They say you are a canon of 5 or 4 cathedrals.
4 cathedrals.
How did you achieve that?
Well, it comes by grace. I mean, I was first appointed a canon of Anglican Diocese of Accra, for which I'm a priest of, in January 2010. Then in April 2014, Cameroon also appointed me a canon of their cathedral, St. Michael and All Angels in Douala. Then in November 2016, I was appointed a canon of the All Saints Cathedral in Guinea. Then August 2019, I was appointed and installed a canon at the St. Andrew's Cathedral, 2nd.
Oh, so Ghana, Cameroon, Guinea, and then 2nd, that is Accra.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So nothing debars you as a canon to be appointed in many cathedrals?
Nothing. I mean, as a matter of fact, it's an honorary position. And so it doesn't make you translate yourself into those dioceses that have appointed you. And I say it's by the grace of God, because in the Anglican Communion, I can say emphatically that I'm the only person who is a canon of 4 cathedrals.
That's interesting. Worldwide.
Worldwide, yeah.
Right. Let's go to the main conversation today. Yeah. This conversation started when the bishop charge for the last section for the 23rd Synod came out ahead of Seat March 2021 Synod, where he made it clearly that there's a need to create a new diocese. And as part of the conversation of that particular synod, some few documents were shared, which I want us to just refer to. Then we come to the legality of the whole matter. So if I go to the decisions that were taken at the last section of the 23rd Synod 2021 at St. Joseph the Worker Anglican Church Condition, Accra, held on Saturday, 6 March 2021. These are the Synod decision, and then I'll refer you to a few indications on it, where they indicated clearly that there's a need to create a new diocese among other matters. But in this particular document, became more amplified in the first section of the 24th Synod, where it says, pursuant to the regulations, Synod resolutions dated 7th August 2021, is to carve Tema out of Accra Diocese. The Tema Diocese will comprise of the following: Tema, Ashaman, Pampram, New Ningu, Hunkatamanso, Dodoa, Adam, Dangbe East, and its environs. In that direction, a 9-member committee as constituted by the Lord Bishop of Accra is mandated to begin the process, and then that a suffragan bishop should be elected. We'll come and look at the composition of the 9-member committee with regards to it. But is it where it starts from at any point that a new diocese needs to begin or needs to carve out?
It's a process. The process is that, first of all, when a bishop needs, I mean, and I might have to quote the relevant section of the Constitution. When you look at Article 8, Article 8.1, it says, means for episcopal assistance. If a diocesan bishop shall have need of episcopal assistance by reason of the extent of diocesan work, age, or infirmity, a bishop coadjutor with the right of automatic succession, or a suffragan bishop without the right of a succession, may be elected by and for the said diocese after the archbishop has been consulted and has satisfied himself that the diocese concerned is able to make proper financial provision for the holder of the proposed office. So first, the bishop comes to his synod and tells his synod that this is why I want to do, I want to do this, whether he wants a suffragan bishop or coadjutor bishop, but we will come to the description and who a coadjutor and a suffragan is. And so once the synod, gives its blessing to the bishop, then the bishop then writes to the archbishop to seek permission to go ahead. Then the Archbishop would then write back and say, go ahead and put the necessary processes in place. So then the bishop would have to demarcate the area which he wants to carve out. And in doing so, you need to set up a committee to look into the modalities. So the committee will look at first the number of parishes that constitute a diocese. And when you look at the constitution in article just a moment. Article 18. Article 18, it says the number of...
This constitution is the provincial constitution.
I'm talking from the provincial. When it comes to matters of this nature, it's not the diocesan constitution. Yeah,
it's strictly provincial.
It's strictly provincial. The number of parishes. No new diocese shall be formed if thereby any existing diocese shall be so reduced as to contain fewer than 6 parishes. And no new diocese shall be formed unless it shall contain at least 5 parishes within the boundaries of such new diocese. And so you realize that there are certain criteria that has to be met. And so if you want to create a new diocese, then you are looking at that new diocese should have at least 5 parishes, not congregations. The difference between a congregation and a parish. And so you have to have 5 parishes and maybe numerous or maybe a few congregations added. But the main criteria is that the new parish, the new diocese should constitute 5 parishes minimum.
Does it become an internal hovering or duty of, or the onus will lie on the diocesan and its synod, that when the decision is taken to carve out a new diocese, they have to first of all do their underground works and see to it that the area to be carved is not less than 5 parishes.
That is it. Then we go to the next criteria. I mean, these are not written, but they have become norms. You have to have a residence for the bishop, you have to have a vehicle for the bishop, and you have to have 2 years' salary for the bishop. Because the decision to approve the creation is not for the diocese itself. The diocese has the intent, then the intent will then go to the provincial synod or the provincial standing committee, and you know standing committee would sit when synod is in session.
Yeah.
And so either it goes to provincial standing committee or provincial synod, and they will look at the modalities. And if the modalities fit into the criteria which the constitution stipulates, then they will give the endorsement, and then the processes will then follow.
So at what point do we bring in an election of a suffragan bishop from the preamble article that you read?
No, the preamble says that when the bishop needs episcopal assistance.
Okay. And so it's not solely coming with creating a diocese that an election for a bishop, coadjutor, or suffragan takes place.
Okay. Now you've hit the nail on the head. So let me try to explain. A suffragan bishop is more or less like it's a caretaker. I want you to look at this area. But you realize that in every diocese, there are divisions. That archdeaconry, where there's an archdeacon who is the eye of the bishop at that particular area. Now, when a suffragan bishop is elected, the suffragan bishop is given an area to oversee on behalf of the bishop. That area is not his diocese. You know, I've been hearing Tema diocese, suffragan bishop of Tema. There's nothing like suffragan bishop of Tema, because Tema is not a diocese. So it's suffragan bishop of Accra, but the bishop wants him to oversee the area of Tema in which in future he would want to carve out of his diocese. And because he's a bishop, you know, a bishop is a bishop. The titles are offices that they hold. Like we have an assistant bishop, a suffragan bishop, a coadjutor bishop, and a diocesan bishop. And it follows in that order. The assistant bishop is the lowest, then the suffragan bishop comes, then the coadjutor, and the diocesan. Now let me give the description. An assistant bishop hitherto, before the suffragancy title came into being in our province, we only had assistant bishop, coadjutor, and the assistant. The assistant bishop could be anybody elected to assist the bishop.
In other jurisdictions, they say that an assistant bishop is somebody who has served as the assistant bishop before.
That's what I'm coming to. So we adopted that process. So the assistant bishops are the assistant bishops who have retired and have some kind of energy in them. So if a bishop needs an assistance, or maybe a bishop then travels and he doesn't have a coadjutor, he doesn't have
a vicar general.
No, I'm not talking about it. He doesn't have a suffragan bishop. He can look around and say, oh, I know you are retired, but if you can come and do some work whilst I'm away, then the bishop then writes to him and appoints him as an assistant bishop.
With that, does he have to do strictly with the diocese, or it do with provincial? It can do with any part of the province.
He can pick him from any part of the province. He can even pick him from any part of the communion. But he comes there to assist. And I'll give you a typical example. Bishop Alote retired from Cape Coast. Now he's assisting in the Diocese of Long Island in the USA. And so strictly the assistant bishop goes in as a stopgap measure where there's no bishop. Now the suffragan bishop is elected with a view of helping the bishop develop the area where he intends to carve. But he doesn't have a right to become automatically the diocesan.
In the absence of the diocesan.
No. A diocesan when the place is carved out. The moment the place is carved out, then we go into an election to elect a diocesan bishop.
So what you are saying is that...
But let me finish. But the bishop coadjutor has a right of succession so that he's elected getting to the end of the term of the diocesan bishop. So that when the diocesan bishop retires, he just moves into the office and he's enthroned as diocesan.
Let me just review, for the purpose of those who just joined the conversation. An assistant bishop, it's somebody who is being appointed to assist the assistant bishop, or a sitting bishop, I should say.
Right.
And the suffragan bishop is elected and would be given responsibilities to take care of an area to be created. And you are saying that that suffragan bishop does not automatically inherit that area if it fully satisfies the criteria set out by the provincial constitution. But a bishop coadjutor is someone who is in waiting to become a diocesan bishop.
Let me tell you a joke. Like one of the bishops would try to differentiate between a suffragan and a diocesan. He says a suffragan bishop, when he wakes up in the morning, he goes to the diocesan office. My Lord, is there anything for me to do? Is there any work for me to do? But a bishop coadjutor would then go and say, my Lord, do you think you are well to continue in office? Trying to say that you better leave and
let me come and take over.
That is the other one. More or less begs for work.
He subjects himself to be given responsibility.
That is it.
All right. Let's come back to see the highlight you used earlier concerning the modalities that you've established here. That the provincial synod would have to set up a committee.
Not the provincial synod.
Sorry, provincial synod.
The assistant has to set up a committee to look into the modalities of the creation. Like looking at whether they have the 5 parishes and whether they have financial strength. Then you look at the financial capabilities, look at maybe the organogram of the diocese. Then there's a critical thing.
I want to bring to your point the terms of reference being given to the committee that was set at the 24th first session of synod, where the chairman was appointed by the Lord Bishop. They have the registrar of the diocese to be a member of the committee. We have the archdeacon of the area to be carved out to be part of the committee. 2 representatives of the clergy elected from the House of Clergy to be part, and then 2 representatives from the laity, from the House of Laity there, an accountant or finance person, then the provincial secretary of CPWA2 is part of the committee. and then the last is a secretary to be appointed by the bishop. There are proposed terms of reference. This is an addendum of the bishop's charge.
Okay, let me make some kind of correction.
Correction.
Technically, I shouldn't have been on the committee.
Technically.
As a member. I could have been co-opted because I belong to Accra Diocese. Because assuming I wasn't part of Accra Diocese, you can't put me on the committee. Because I then become a referee and a player.
Exactly.
Because after they finish their work,
they have to present.
They have to present, and it comes through my office.
Okay, so did you object your membership?
Well, I raised concerns, not objection, but I believe that I then changed my position then to become a consultant instead of a member. And so when it goes into the subcommittees that they created, I can go to any of the subcommittee meetings and maybe offer advice.
But you wouldn't be on the committee as a member of the committee?
No, I will sit in the committee
as a consultant.
As a consultant.
But not as a secretary
not as a member of the committee, but as a consultant, because I'm the provincial secretary.
That's fine. That's fine. And then coming to look at the proposed terms of reference being given to the committee, they are to assess the potential of the tema archdeaconry being a diocese.
Right.
Financial viability of the parishes and congregations under the archdeaconry, a 3 financial accounts of parishes and congregations under the archdeaconry, and draw up a 5-year composite budget of the new diocese, taking into account the following: income, general assessment, development assessment, grants, donations, interest on investments, expenditure, stipends for clergy, salaries for lay staff, allowances, SSF contributions, general expenses, traveling and transport, property expenses. The 5th part is to identify a potential residence for the bishop and the secretariat for the diocese, administrative needs of the new diocese, propose a formula for sharing of assets between the 2 dioceses, if any. And the 8th point is any recommendation. Now, the composition of the term archdeaconry, we have 10 parishes under it, of which your very own parish, St. Monica's, that you are a parish priest to.
I'm not a parish, but I'm a priest in charge.
Of a priest in charge, you are part of. And then we have 9 congregations under it. So, when you even look at, in terms of number, hindsight, the number of parishes under it alone makes them ripe enough to become a diocese. When all this work...
Let me call it, not ripe. Satisfy one of the criteria.
It is just one part.
Yeah. Okay. So because you have to satisfy all the criteria to become ripe. So you can have 20 parishes, but if you are not financially viable, then you are not ripe.
What will make an area financially viable? Who determines that? Is it the committee that the Lord Bishop has said?
No.
That will determine that, okay, they are financially viable, or it is the province that will come and see to it that this area is financially viable to become a diocese.
Now, after this committee, that's the creation committee, appointed by the Diocesan Synod. You know, when I say appointed by the Diocesan Synod, it's the bishop who nominates.
Nominates, yeah.
Then the synod confirms the appointment. So they are appointed by the
synod.
Diocesan Synod. Now, they will do their work and present it to the bishop. I believe that bishop will bring it up to standing committee because synod will not be in session. Then synod will then approve, synod of provincials, the Diocesan Synod or the Diocesan Standing Committee will then endorse the report. Then the report will move through the provincial secretary to the primate to enable the primate call a provincial synod to look at it. And if a provincial synod is not in session, then the standing committee. But prior to that, the primate would then refer it, would set up a committee, investigative committee, to come and ascertain whether these things that have been said
on the
in
report,
the document are really there. Because then they will visit the area and look at the parishes, whether they have a church building, they have a vicarage, they have this, they have that. And so they look at all these. And so it's more or less like a checklist. You go, you check, you tick. So after you have ticked all of them, and they fulfill all the criteria.
Somebody say, they fulfill all righteousness.
That is it. The investigative committee would then write a report to the primate, and with that report, the primate then has a right to call a synod, or it might be part of the agenda on a synod that is supposed to be, called.
If I should look at the proposed terms of reference, where they are being asked to present a 5 years financial account of the parishes under review, and some also say that we are looking at this creation committee that has been put together. They have a period of about 2 years to see to it that the checklist is being made.
Let me correct.
Is there a timeline?
No, let me correct. The creation committee does not have 2 years. The bishop gave the committee a terms of reference that I want your report in 6 months. And so the creation committee intends to submit a report by the end of June.
This come June.
They come June, because that will be almost 6 months when they started work. And so when the report is given to the bishop will then call maybe either a synod or standing committee.
At his discretion.
At his discretion. Because you look at the convenience, whether synod is due. If synod is not due, then he can call an emergency standing committee meeting to look specifically at the report of this creation committee. And when the standing committee endorses the report, then it means that the report is ready to move to the next stage. The next stage is that it goes through the provincial secretary
to the primate.
To the primate. Then the primate will then set a committee to come and see whether the things that they have said in the report are really on ground.
All these processes, is it time bound?
It is not specifically time bound, because I can, with the hindsight, say that there are 2 instances since I became provincial secretary that 2 dioceses have been created. The first one was Dunkwao Onofin, created out of Cape Coast. The Suffragan bishop was elected in consecrated in August 2008. Dunkwao was ready for carving in November 2011. So you're talking about 3 years.
3 years.
Now the Kumasi created a suffragancy in May 2011. It was carved out in April 2014, also 3 years. And so you look at the period and say that, it's between 2 and 3 years. But it can be less, depending on the speed at which the diocese which intends to create works at or develop, whatever.
Let me ask you a question. You might seem to see that probably it's a conflict of your office.
Yeah.
The parish you are in as priest in charge,
Right,
is within the enclave or the area to be carved out.
yeah.
In your rounds on daily routines, do you think that we might take a short while to carve out Tema, or to take a longer while in carving out Tema?
It's a decision. It's a decision I cannot sit here and make, because it's the decision of the primate. It's the primate who decides when he has to send a report, when he has to constitute the investigative committee, when the investigative committee is going to come, when they're going to finish their report and send it back to the primate, when he's going to call synod. I can tell you that it's going to be difficult for you to call a provincial synod.
In the times we find ourselves?
That is it,
COVID.
because COVID. But there are other means which you can do a virtual synod to get the approval.
I wanted to ask if you've witnessed a conflict in terms of what the investigative committee from the province being sent to the area to be created find things that contradict the report that has been sent by the diocesan committee. So it has to further prolong the creation. Have you witnessed such?
I would not say any of that nature had happened. But I can tell you from history that before a diocese can carve out, there should be a diocesan in office. Secondly, I mean, the bishop intended to carve out Yoso a long time ago. Then the bishop fell sick. So he was in and out of his diocese because he went for medical treatment in the US, in and out, till he died. Then when he died, there was this, I don't know whether you know the secondary story.
Yeah, exactly.
There was this battling as to who has to become, the diocesan, and they went through so many elections, which even ended up in court and even getting some of the people incarcerated in prison for contempt. But immediately the diocesan was elected and enthroned. At his enthronement, he made a public statement that he now casts out the Diocese of Yosu because it had already been approved by the provincial synod. But they were waiting for a bishop to make that proclamation. And so some of these things could delay. But when you look at it in the ordinary sense, it is something that could take a year, could take 2 years, could take 3 years, could take 4 years, could take 5 years. Because the approval has to come from outside. You might be ready. But if the approving authority says, there are some hitches that I find that you have to wait. And I'll give you a typical example. Ghana should have been carved out of West Africa in 2003.
I heard that.
We had done all that it takes. We had even gone ahead to approve the provincial constitution of Ghana. And I remember I was involved in that meeting at St. Paul's La, because every diocese in the Ghana enclave, at that time it wasn't even internal province of Ghana, in the Ghana enclave, was to look at the constitution and approve it. And all the dioceses at that time approved the constitution. And so we were then waiting for the higher body, which is the Anglican Consultative Council.
ACC.
ACC. So you see what happens. Then ACC had already come to do the inspection. And so they were just ready to say, when you bring this, you will say, go ahead. Then the war in Liberia and Sierra Leone broke. And these were the strong countries that were going to hold the rest of the West. So ACC said, we don't think that we can allow you to go and leave these dioceses as orphans. And so that is where we are. How many years? We're going to almost 19 years.
All right. This is 19 years it took to see whether Ghana was going to become a province on its own or not. We are still having conversation with regards to the creation of a diocese. And we've seen the legal point of view. We've come into perspective to see the intention of the diocesan bishop for the Anglican Diocese of Accra, right, Reverend Dr. Daniel Savannah Spencer Toto, intending to carve out an area within his diocese, in this sense, a stemma, to be a diocese. There's an intention for it to be created. We've seen the modalities in play. We'll go on a quick time. When we come back, we'll see what the election of African bishop is all about. Now that we have one, his consecration. After his consecration, what happens? And now, in terms of clergy, where do they choose to be, or at what point would they choose to be, whether they want to be in Accra or they want to be in Tema Diocese? That is if the province decides or approves the carving out of the Tema Diocese. We'll be right back after this quick time.
Diocese of Accra by divine permission and under the auspices of His Lordship, Right Reverend Dr. Daniel Sylvanus Mensah Toto, the Diocesan Lord Bishop warmly invites you to the consecration of the Very Reverend Dr. George Kotai-Nikwe as Suffragan Bishop of the Anglican Diocese of Accra on Sunday, 30th January 2022 at 8:30 a.m. prompt, happening live at the consecration grounds of the Cathedral Church of the Most Holy Trinity on the John Evans Mills High Street in Accra and will be aired on Adwa TV. Guest of honor, His Excellency Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia, Vice President, Republic of Ghana, Most Reverend Dr. Jonathan B.B. Hart, the Archbishop and Primate of Church of Province of West Africa, and the consecration celebrant, Right Reverend Charles May, Anglican Bishop of Highfield Diocese, South Africa, who is guest preacher for the consecration, Most Reverend Dr. Cyril Ben Smith, the Archbishop for the Internal Province of Ghana, Anglican Communion, Episcopal House of Bishops for the Internal Province of Ghana, heads of diplomatic missions in Ghana, the Ghana Christian Council of Churches, Corporate Ghana, and the entire brethren of the Anglican Diocese of Accra will be in attendance. Be part of this historic and spiritual service as we see Very Reverend Dr. George Kotai-Nikwe being consecrated as Suffragan Bishop. Of Accra by divine permission and under the auspices of His Lordship, Right Reverend Dr. Daniel Sylvanus Mensah Toto, the Diocesan Lord Bishop warmly invites you to the consecration of the Very Reverend Dr. George Kotai-Nikwe as Suffragan Bishop of the Anglican Diocese of Accra on Sunday, 30th January 2022 at 8:30 a.m. prompt, happening live at the consecration grounds of the Cathedral Church of the Most Holy Trinity on the John Evans Mills High Street in Accra and will be aired on Adwa TV. Guest of honor, His Excellency Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia, Vice President, Republic of Ghana, Most Reverend Dr. Jonathan B.B. Hart, the Archbishop and Primate of Church of Province of West Africa, and the consecration celebrant, Right Reverend Charles May, Anglican Bishop of Highfield Diocese, South Africa, who is guest preacher for the consecration, Most Reverend Dr. Cyril Ben Smith, the Archbishop for the Internal Province of Ghana, Anglican Communion, Episcopal House of Bishops for the Internal Province of Ghana, heads of diplomatic missions in Ghana, the Ghana Christian Council of Churches, Corporate Ghana, and the entire brethren of the Anglican Diocese of Accra will be in attendance. Be part of this historic and spiritual service as we see Very Reverend Dr. George Kotai-Nikwe being consecrated as Suffragan Bishop.
Welcome back from the break. You're still watching AM Ghana Breakfast Show on Adwa Television, and then we are having a conversation with the Rev'D Canon Anthony Eiwuley. is the Provincial Secretary for the Church of Prophets of West Africa. And our conversation is centered on the modalities or the constitutionalities involved so far as a new diocese to be created within the Anglican Communion. I have Ernest Simon Ashi watching on Facebook. He says, very educative. This one is coming from Mrs. Elizabeth Adiko. Adwa TV Ghana, good morning. Thanks so much for bringing us into this education. Thanks to Rev'D Canon Eiwuley. God bless you, Canon. This among you can keep your messages, and you have any question to us in regards to the creation of the Tema Diocese and the carving out from Accra and the functions to or the role of the suffragan, you can quickly slide in your thoughts, and I'll gladly refer them to the Canon. Canon, we've been able to establish at what point a diocese can be created, pointers that they need to satisfy in terms of finances, buildings, among other things. When it's been decided, after the investigative committee have come to sieve the area and goes back to report to the primate, and a provincial synod or a standing committee is situated, and the go-ahead is given to Accra, that we feel that the area under inspection to be carved out is ready. What happens? What do we do? The diocesan will be written to by the primate. Is he going to announce to his synod at the diocesan level, or there's going to be a ceremony for the announcement to be made that this diocese is now the area is now carved out to be a diocese on its own?
I believe what happens is the diocesan would only have to inform his diocese, and he can inform through many means. I mean, he can inform through a letter, he can inform maybe through a standing committee, and if perchance synod is going to be in session, he can inform as part of his charge to synod that, I mean, we started a process, a journey, the journey has ended, and this is what has happened. Now the diocesan, in consultation with the primate, will fix a date for the inauguration of the new diocese. So that after the inauguration, then the new diocese would then go into synod. Because
there's something I want to bring our mind back to one bit. Somebody asked a question some time ago that is it possible that the 9-man committee that has been established, sorry for taking you back, but I just realized the question right now, that is it possible that when the report is ready, you indicated that either the diocesan will call a diocesan synod or a standing committee looking at availability and then the options are play. Is it possible that the report can be rejected at that level?
Well, it's not for me to say.
No, is it possible?
That's why I say it's not for me to say, because I don't know the reason why they will reject it, and I don't know the reason why they will approve it. But you can judge from the euphoria that almost everybody
is inclined
that Tema is ready, Tema is ready, to the extent that even when the suffragan bishop was elected, people started calling him suffragan bishop of Tema.
Which is correct?
Wrong. A bishop is a bishop of a diocese. And so if there's no diocese, you can't assign an area to the bishop.
That's fantastic. Yeah. All right. Now let's come back to, thanks for clarifying that one for me. Let's come back to you said there's going to be a ceremony.
Yeah. And
then after the ceremony, that area that the new diocese would have to go into synod. Now we know that the composition of every synod is the house of laity and then the house of clergy. At what point do we constitute a house of clergy for that new diocese?
Okay. Now let me explain. Now the new diocese adopts the constitution of the mother diocese. And so the members of the Accra diocese from Tema would initially constitute the diocese, that diocesan synod, until the proclamation
is made.
And a new diocesan is created. Then he calls his first synod. Then new members can then be elected. And so the old composition of the Archdeaconry of Tema, who were on the Accra Diocesan Synod as members, become the interim or initial members of the Diocese of Tema. if it's so created.
So if I understand right,
Yeah.
if it's so created, meaning that every priest that is already in Tema automatically stays in Tema.
Automatically stays in Tema.
Do we have a choice to be given to the others who want to also cross carpet?
Don't let us run there. Let's explain that. Because they are there when the proclamation is made, that is their station. They can't move.
They can't move.
They can only move by permission of the bishop.
That is after they've had a diocesan
After
bishop.
they have the diocesan. Because it's only the diocesan who can ask you to move or stay. And so once you are in Tema and Tema is created, I mean, I wouldn't say it's by accident, but by mere coincidence that you are at location where the thing happened, you are caught.
Let me use it as an example to make the people understand better.
Okay.
You are the parish priest in charge for St. Monica's Anglican Church, Bachona.
Right.
It is under the area that is to be created.
Right.
You are currently in Tema Archdeacon.
Right.
If it is carved out, you'll be part of the Tema diocese.
Right.
The moment the inauguration is being made, automatically you become a priest for the new diocese. Is that what you are saying?
Sure.
And when that inauguration is being made, you now have to go into synod.
That is it.
That synod, what are you going to do? Because there's no diocesan at that point. What happens at that particular synod? Who chairs that synod?
Oh, the synod is chaired by the primate.
The primate.
Yeah.
For that new diocese.
The synod is chaired by the primate, so that when a diocese is vacant, the primate automatically becomes the diocesan, or he can appoint an assistant bishop to go and hold forth for him. I'll give you a typical example. When the Archbishop, the 9th Archbishop of the province of West Africa, Archbishop Telewa Johnson of the Gambia, died in office as diocesan of Gambia and the primate of West Africa, there was a vacuum. The Bishop of Guinea, who had then retired, Bishop Gomez, was appointed by the then primate. Because when he died, because of our succession plan, we have 2 archbishops. The moment this person ends his office, immediately it rolls over to the other archbishop. Yeah. And so Archbishop Safo immediately took over. So at the Thanksgiving service, he appointed Archbishop Gomez to come and become the assistant bishop of Gambia to oversee to the election of a new diocesan. In the same way, when the diocese is created, the primate automatically takes control of that diocese because there's no diocesan. And Accra cannot be a diocesan.
Because it's carved out.
It's carved out. You can't sell your goat and hold its tail. And so he then appoints somebody to hold the fort for him because he's far away, or he has to come and oversee the election of a new diocesan.
So, right at that first synod of the new diocese, in this case, if Tema is created,
it's not even a first synod; it's a special.
The special synod
to purposely to elect a diocesan.
So that means that after the inauguration, at what point do the nominating committee comes in? Because they are going to adopt the constitution of the diocese they are coming from.
Let me explain. We have made fetish of the nominating committee. The nominating committee can be appointed on the floor of synod and given maybe 2 hours to go and bring names.
Interesting.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't matter that they have to have whether 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or 1 month.
Let me make reference to.
Connor is trying to make reference to the nominating committee from the provincial constitution. I'm also trying to make references to mine with regards to an item here they call bishops. When it comes to the Anglican constitution, Accra Diocese.
Okay. Whenever a vacancy occurs, or is about to occur, or whenever, that's Canon 2 of the election of bishops.
Okay.
Or whenever a decision is taken by the diocesan synod to elect a bishop quieter or a suffragan bishop, the Dasan bishop or the ecclesiastical authority. When you call it ecclesiastical authority, it's when there's no bishop in view, there's no assistant bishop that the primate can appoint. The primate can appoint what we call an ecclesiastical authority, a composition of a body to oversee the diocese and report to him. Shall within 7 days notify the archbishop in writing, and upon receipt the archbishop will then reply or notify the chairman of the nominating committee and the diocese, and the chairman of the nominating committee shall convene a meeting of the committee to consider nominations for submission of the diocese to the diocese.
But there's a 7 days ultimatum somewhere.
It says when the vacancy happens, within 7 days he has to notify the chairman of the nominating committee. And so there's no there's no time. I mean that
bound for the nominating committee.
The nominating committee can immediately at the floor of synod, because they know the people. They say, bring us the names. You are not the one going to do the election. We are doing. But we can't look at all of them and say, oh, we choose A, we choose B, we choose. So just sieve through and bring us 2 or 3 names and let us vote. And you know there's a process. There are 3 rounds of voting. And in each round, you have to have a 2/3 majority.
But before we come to the rounds of voting, just for clarity's sake, because when you...
Please don't look at the
I'm just looking, because you made a statement that they are going to borrow the constitution of the diocese that they are coming in from.
No. Yeah, what I'm saying, when we say they borrow, not that they borrow, they use.
They are going to use it.
They use it, but when they use it, there are other things. But when it comes to election of bishop, you don't go to the diocese.
Then that's fine. That's understandable.
Yeah.
Because you know that here states that the nominating committee, the chairman of it is going to be a chancellor.
Yeah.
And in the case of that new diocese created, there's no chancellor.
The provincial chancellor.
That's fine. Then that's the wisdom I want us to
Yeah,
draw.
the provincial chancellor automatic, because during the inauguration ceremony, the provincial chancellor is there, the archbishop is there, that's the primate is there. If the primate cannot come, he can nominate another bishop to do his work for him.
All right.
Then the provincial secretary should be there, then provincial chancellor.
We are going to continue this tomorrow, God willing, at 8 o'clock. But let me read the last messages. And then tomorrow we'll look at the point where the cross carpets will be made. That now we've seen automatically, if we are carved out, wherever you find yourself in Tema, you're an automatic priest in Tema. Now, for those that are in Accra and other places who wish to be part of the new diocese, at what point do they have to also come in? And we come and look at the consecration ceremony of a African bishop. What other things that have also come as a result of that tomorrow at 8 Canon. Let me read the last messages and then maybe you have to call it a day. Mrs. Adiko says that listening with rapt attention, and then Kofi Jenfi say very educative. Maybe our message said this is really good and educative program. Thank you for letting us in the consecration. And then Fela Brown says well understood, Reverend Canon. So that is all about it. I have people watching. I'm so grateful, and we have to make room for the AFCON review too. The name is Pepsival, and I've had the Reverend Canon Anthony Eiwuley, who is the provincial secretary of the Church of Province of West Africa, with me. I see you tomorrow. Otemia will continue with the rest of the conversation. Canon, I'm so grateful to you. So see you tomorrow. And it seems that because of time, we can't exhaust what is left, but the chunk of it has been exhausted. We'll look at from tomorrow the initial synod, like we've had a highlight of it. We'll look at when the election of the new bishop will be made, those who qualify to contest for that new the assistant bishop of the new diocese created, and then when other appointments and other archdeaconries too will also be created within that locality. Tomorrow will be the focus of the conversation tomorrow. Thanks for coming, sir.
You're welcome.
All right, so see you tomorrow at 8 o'clock a.m. here as we continue with the conversation with the provincial secretary. And on Friday, there's going to be an exclusive interview too with the Sovereign Bishop-elect, the president of the Very Reverend Dr. George Kote Nikwe, currently the dean of the cathedral, on Friday, same time, before the consecration on Sunday. So do stay tuned and do enjoy the rest of our programs. I'm out.